Let us now proceed and check out what are methods or functions in Java. So first of all, what are methods and how do they look like? At the very beginning of this course, I told you that this main is basically the method. And inside the main method or inside the main function, we actually have the method body where we write our code. So a typical method in Java has some syntax. The very first thing that you need while writing any method is that the modifier. So here in case of main method, the public static is basically the modifier. And then we have something called the return type. In our case, we have return type as void. Now the void basically means that this method main does not return anything. So if this method does not return anything, we can simply write return nothing. End it with a semicolon right after the return statement. Now suppose if I change this void to, let's say, int. So here the compiler is not happy. It says that missing return value. So whenever we modify the return type, we need to also make changes to our return statement as well. So after the return keyword, we need to return a value that needs to be a integer type, such as 34 or 17 or let's say 20. So all these numbers are basically the integer type values. Now suppose if I make it 20.8f, so this simply means that we are returning a floating point value. So in place of integer, we need to replace it by float data type. Now as of now, let us revert it back to void. So whenever we have the return type as void, this return statement is basically optional. If you want, you can remove it. But as of now, just for the understanding, let us keep it here only. Now the very next part of our method syntax is the method name. So this main is basically the method name. And then followed by the method name, we have the bracket open and then bracket close. And in between the bracket open and bracket close, we need to write our parameters. So this part of the declaration is known as the parameters. To be more specific, here the parameters will be known as the formal argument or the formal parameters. Now right after this method, we have the curly bracket open and curly bracket close. So whatever we type within this curly bracket becomes the method body. As we all know, whatever code that we were writing till now, we wrote it within our main method or main function. And at the end of the method, we always have a return statement. Now after the return statement, we cannot write any code beyond this point. Because when this statement is executed, the compiler does not consider any more code after this return statement. Now suppose if I type here, let's say int x equal to 0, then the compiler will not consider this statement as a valid statement, just because it is written right after the return statement. So remember, whenever we write the return statement, we always write it at the end of the method. And now one more point to remember here is that whenever we define a method, we always define it within the class. So here we have the public class of main. So this main method is present inside the class. Now suppose you want to define one more method. Let's call it public static. Let us give the return type as void. Let us give the name of the method as say hello. Bracket open and close. And then curly bracket open and close. And within this, let us write our code, a simple statement to print out hello. Now if you run the code right now, then this method will not be executed. Let us check it out. So here we get nothing in the output console. Now in order to make this statement executed, we need to somehow call this method. And as we all know, the main method is the entry point of our application. So as a method body, let us call say hello. So when this statement will be executed, the Java compiler will simply call this method. So when this method is called, this print statement will be further executed. So if I run the code right now, we will get hello in the output console. And yes, hello. Now what will happen if I call this method multiple times? So if I call say hello again and again, let's see what happens. Let us run the code. And there we go, hello 4 times in the output console, just because we are calling the method again and again. Now here, since we have the return type as void, then we can simply write the return statement. And soon after the return statement, we can have the semicolon to end the statement. And yes, this return statement is optional because we have void written here. So this is how a typical method in Java looks like.